Hey everyone, Ranger Angelina here at Sequoia State Park, and I wanted to give you all an update on our bull snake. So last week on Saturday, I believe, maybe Friday, we noticed that our bull snake had gone blue. That's what we call it. So his eyes have become cloudy and almost this iridescent blue color. And these snakes have specialized scales that go over their eyes. They don't have eyelids or ears, so they have a specialized scale that covers their eyeball. And so when they're beginning the shedding process, that cap is coming loose as the new cells are forming, and it gives it this cloudy blue color. So knowing that our snake was about to shed, we didn't feed him and we didn't handle him. Some things that will annoy or upset them. Also, he can't see, so by picking him up and messing with him, he's going to be more agitated and just more likely to strike and whatnot. So we handle shedding with many different provisions in place. And then we talked about what we're calling a humidity chamber. That's what we've been referring to it as. And this is just a shoebox. We cut a hole and we put in some moss. So not florist moss, it's special reptile safe moss. And we wet it down a couple times throughout the last few days as he's been shedding. You would not believe the number of angry visitors we had this weekend, asking why we made a snake stay in this Tupperware. I was inside the snake queue, so people couldn't see me and I could hear them. I was working on snake tanks at our new display, and people were outraged about how we were treating our snake, which was good to see that people cared, but also it would have been nice if just had a conversation with us or assume we were doing it for a reason. We know what we're doing with the snakes here, and so we would have to go and explain to them that this was something we were doing to help our snake. Hard to get through people's heads sometimes that we're here to help all of our animals. That's our goal, and that's what we do all day, every day. So we made this humidity chamber, and he poked his head out a few times, but he didn't come out of it since Friday. He has been in this chamber. And so I noticed today around lunch that he had finally emerged, and alas, he had shed. So needs increased humidity in here to help that skin peel off, that old skin. And then he needs hard substrates in his enclosure so that he can rub up against it and it will peel it off. When you don't have any appendages, you gotta use what you got. And so he used a big rock and it peeled that skin off, and it comes off like when you peel your hoodie off and it's inside out. That's how a snake's skin comes off. So I've been holding him, showing him to visitors, and I have this box sitting out next to me and he went back in the box. So apparently he likes this box. It's nice and tight, it's high humidity, it's really soft with that moss, so it's perfect to attract a snake. I'll show you. If you fear snakes, this may cause nightmares. It's not that scary, but it's just a snake in a box. So he's over 5 foot long and he fits in this box even with all this moss. And he can fit through this little hole and choose to come in and out. Shut him back in there. We're outside. He's getting some fresh air. We get to take our masks off, come outside. So here is his shed, which if he's 5 foot long, his shed is going to also be 5 foot long, right? And I wanted to Facebook Live because there's a very short time span before this skin dries out, and we're in it. And so I have stretched it all out because it does all cling up, and since it's wet, it's real sticky, and so it will stick to itself. So if you can see here, here's a bit I'm gonna unstick. But I've gone through and done most of it. And then it will dry out. So we want to stretch it out so it looks really nice, so we can use it to teach people about snakes in the future. And so I've got it nice and stretched out. So you can see every bit of this snake in its skin, right? So I talked about when he started shedding how we humans also shed our skin, but we shed just cells at a time, dead skin cells. We don't shed in one big piece like this. This is called ecdysis, E-C-D-Y-S-I-S, ecdysis. So that's when the snakes shed their entire body at once. And they do this for many reasons. Just as they grow naturally, they're just growing bigger skin essentially. Another thing is if they are wounded or have mites or some other infestation or infection, it's kind of like a scab. They will grow a new skin to try and rid themselves of that. The younger the snake is, the more often it will shed just because it's growing at a more rapid pace. Some people think, like with rattlesnakes, the more rattles they have, that's each shed or each year of their life. It's not true. You know, they could be really young and have a lot of rattles. They could be really old and their rattle was knocked off, so they don't have very many. But like I said, on the snake, you can even see its pattern. So it's a bull snake, and he has these kind of big quadrilateral shapes along his body, and then his pattern changes as you get to his tail, and it becomes more of a stripe or a band. And this particular individual has a peculiar band that's about 3 or 4 from the end. So it's a funky looking one. But also I wanted to point out its cloaca. And that's kind of the one hole for everything in a snake. And you can see on the shed exactly where the cloaca is. There's specialized cells there. Because like I said, it does come off inside out. So there's its cloaca. And I often point out that snakes have different scales on their dorsal side than they do on their ventral side. So this is the dorsal side, aka the top or the back, I guess you would say. It's the dorsal side. It's the part of the snake you see when you're looking down at it. And you can see all those little scales. And the bull snake's semi-keeled scales, which, like a speckled king snake, it's really smooth. The bull snake, you can see every individual scale more so. Those are the keeled scales that rattlesnakes come to mind when I think of really keeled scales, so K-E-E-L-E-D. And then the ventral side, aka the belly, or the bottom side, has these really wide scales, and it can easily slither over the ground with those. Another thing that I point out is, do you think snakes have a tail, or do you think snakes are one big tail? And the answer is that they have a tail. And like I said, this one has a pattern change on its tail. Also, that's in a lot of species how you can differentiate a male and a female. Their hips around their cloaca, and then how quickly or not quickly the tail tapers, if it's big or if it gets really pointy really quickly. There's more scientific ways to tell. Snakes have a hemipenis, and you can put a probe up their cloaca and see if they have the hemipenis or not. But just if you're looking at them in the wild, or for our purposes, it doesn't really matter if our snakes are male or female. We just call them kind of what we think they are by their name, and we mix up pronouns and it's whatever we think. So we'll dry out this shed here and keep it around the nature center. It won't be as pliable by the time you all get here, but it is nice and pliable right now, so we'll make sure that it's laid out nicely. And I don't think I showed you, I talked about how their eye caps have the specialized scale, but you can see both of his eye caps. It looks like he busted forth, you know, right here. So you can see his lower mandible and then his head. And there's one eye cap and the other eye cap. And then let's look at Buffalo Bull himself. So Buffalo Bull is a bull snake, And after a snake sheds, it has all new scales, right? So it's like after you go and get your hair cut and your hair is just especially clean and vibrant. And so that's what a snake looks like. So Buffalo Bull is really nice and vibrant right now, and just his scales are really soft. I could tell he was about to shed even before we saw that he was going blue, because he felt really rough. His skin felt rough. So he's fresh from the barber essentially, and he's now out of his box. Worry not if you came this weekend and reported us to PETA. He's all good now. I'm just kidding, we didn't get any reports, but we did have some threats. But Buffalo Bull is strong. Bull snakes can get up to 8 feet, and like I said, he's over 5 feet now, but also his girth is really good. He was a little skinny when I started, and we've really increased his diet. We call him the garbage disposal around here because he will eat what the other snakes snub, and he will eat a lot, and he will eat big rats. You can see he's very active, and he's hissing a little bit at me. So bull snakes are called bull snakes because they can fill up with air and then they let it out and make this kind of hissing noise. They do also pseudo rattle their tails, so they don't have a rattle, but they'll vibrate their tails in leaf litter, and it mimics a rattlesnake. But it's just a general warning sign in the natural world. And they are diurnal most of the time, so they're active during the day, except in extreme heat they will become nocturnal. They'll eat lizards and all kinds of small rodents, as well as birds and small mammals. And they are obviously not venomous, or I wouldn't have him wrapped around my neck here. So these are good snakes to have around. They're not super aggressive, and you can see Buffalo Bull definitely isn't. But they get big, and they will take care of the pests around your house. And you can see how his head is not diamond shaped, how his head blends pretty seamlessly into his body. And then he has round eyes. They're not cat-like pupils. So people see this pattern, and a lot of times people equate pattern with rattlesnake or pattern with venomous. But he's a non-venomous snake that you are likely to see out in the woods here in Oklahoma. And he's huffing and puffing at me, so I think he's liking all these new smells and textures outside.